Hey everybody, welcome back to a Sunday with Schlegs. It is the difference, and we are here to talk about, it's the off date. So Anthony Schlegel right there, the man himself,
Let's go.
The difference maker. He said, hey, send me some questions. We don't have a game to break down this week. He wants to open the mailbag, and so we're going to. But first of all, just hope everybody had a great weekend. A little bit more to go, and if you need some time to kill and listen to some Buckeyes talk before getting into Iowa week, we are here to provide that. Halfway point, and the Buckeyes are looking pretty good, Schlegs.
Yeah, Buckeyes are looking really good. And as a former Silver Bullet, I love the way they're looking on defense. And especially when you have such a high-powered offense like we have, to be able to have confidence that regardless of what the opponent does offensively, you can counter it. I mean, we saw in the Notre Dame game a team that really wanted to old school trestle ball, having some people that are over there, right, that played for Coach Tress, understanding that mindset of field position, time of possession, run the clock, to be able to play that type of game, first game out of the year, and win it and really win the fourth, going back to everything that transpired the year before of not being able to stop the run, but also run the football at will, 14-play drive, 90-something yards for a touchdown. To be able to win the line of scrimmage and be tough like that, great way to start off the season. And as we progressed and you look, guys are getting more comfortable in the defensive scheme. Guys are playing really, really fast. I mean, the athleticism on our defense, and I remember this back in 2014, I just very vividly remember the Alabama game and just going out there for pregame warmups. And I was like, man, these are some big dudes, but they looked very stiff. And our guys were like jacked and athletic. And I'm like, that's what you want. And that's kind of what I see from our defense. You have a bunch of guys that are hungry, that play with a chip on their shoulder, that run to the football. And yeah, they might lose an edge just a little bit, but they can make it up. And they're all pursuing to the football, but they also know what to do. Mm-hmm. So part of that in pursuit allows you to play fast because you know exactly what is expected of you. On both sides of the football, are there things that you need to fix here and there? Absolutely. I mean, 5 weeks in, yes. But from the jump, the way that the defense have looked, I'm really excited about what the second part of the season holds. I think that they're going to get better. I think that they're going to come back healthier. And I think that they're going to be ready to make a run on this last stretch. And then offensively, you know, there's only one football. Guys are coming back, and yes, they will add value. But, I mean, just the way that everybody has been able to step up and contribute and how good those guys have been that haven't been playing. And the fact in the NIL world that we live in, you see a team that supports each other, that wants each other to be successful, but is also not afraid to go out and compete, beat somebody out, and go get theirs too. That's healthy. That's what you want to see, and I think that all stems from Ryan Day and his staff by being real with the guys, but also even from Urban Meyer's days of that competitive excellence. It's just something that permeates that building.
Schlegs, like, it was going to be impossible to know exactly what Jim Knowles' defense was going to look like. And I think maybe some of us thought there would be, I don't know, a learning curve, growing pains, what have you. You know, Tanner McAllister transferred over from Oklahoma State as part of that, like help teach the guys how Jim Knowles communicates, like what the scheme is going to be like. But almost right off the jump, like I haven't seen from where I sit, which is a much more amateur perspective than obviously yours. Like, it doesn't seem like this team misses a lot of assignments. And even if they do, as you said, they've been able to make up with it with some of the athleticism. Like it's vastly exceeded my expectations for how quickly it could come together. And I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, the reason I was just writing down missed assignments, and the reason that you don't see guys out of position or missing assignments is because the system was the system from day one. There's not a lot of adjustments that have to be made. And if there are, they've already been made prior to, right? So he knows exactly how he wants to adjust to whatever package or situation arises because he's been doing that in this system for so long. So when you when you're not making adjustments because, oh, this is a weakness. Hey, guys, we got to kind of go back to the well and redraw this up. Yeah, that's when guys get confused. And when you don't have that, because the man has been doing it his entire career, guys they understand where it fits in that system, and then they can go play, because it's all about knowing the why of the defense and your responsibilities. And then as you make adjustments, it flows. And so I think that's why you're seeing guys play fast, not miss assignments, not make mistakes like you did in the past. Because again, I mean, 18, 22-year-olds, they're coached and they do what they're coached to do.
That's right. That's a good point. All right, so we'll get to the reader questions for you.
And side nugget, because I said that.
Yeah.
Look at the way our offense plays. I mean,
because they also know.
Because they also know, but I think they take them to the why, especially like Brian does. I mean, they all do, but I look at the route running and the adjustments that they make and the expectations on our wide receivers to understand coverage and what to do on certain routes and being able to dissect that pre-snap and while you're running. All those coaching cues that Brian does for them and Coach Day in that passing game, those things are also why Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson are the top 2 rookies of the class right now in the NFL. Yeah. So I think it's a testament to the coaching that we have at Ohio State. There you go. I just wanted to add that in there.
Yeah, there seems to be really, really strong staff alignment for that group right now. Obviously, they've got at least 6 more and potentially 9 more games to prove that. We'll see how they do. And helpfully, some of our readers wanted you to name some second half. They didn't say difference makers, but I knew that's what they meant because that's what we call it on Sundays with Schlegs. But they want to know who's going to lead the Buckeyes in sacks, who's going to lead in interceptions, and who's going to be the biggest surprise from the defense at the end of the year. So you're gazing into your crystal ball, Schlegs, and you've got some difference makers there with sacks, interceptions, and somebody who might surprise down the stretch.
I could see McAllister only leading in. Oh no, I'm going back and forth between him and Hickman on interceptions. I don't think it will be from the corners because it's just a different ball. It will be somebody that's ranging out there, and that also might be Lathan.
Yeah.
So I would say it either nickel or safety, right? Okay. Middle field safety. Because of pressure. I think that I've been thinking about the sack analysis. And I mean, again, easy to put your money on Mike Hall right now because he leads everybody by 2 sacks.
Yeah,
right?
That's how that helps.
And he's an interior lineman. And, somebody also said, like, are they rotating the D-line too much? And if there's somebody I'm going to trust unequivocally with how he wants to rotate his line, it would be Larry Johnson, but it's also getting guys reps to see what kind of value they could have or add in different situations as you get into the meat of the season. So I don't worry about that. They need live bullets. There's only so many in a game, and especially when, you beat every opponent. I think there's only 2 teams that have beat every opponent by double digits, and it's Ohio State and I forget, it's a smaller school. So I don't know if it's necessarily going to come from the edge. And as you pointed out previously in other comments, I mean, JT's being held tremendously. I think a lot of it is going to come up front because our pass rush has been good on the edge. Guys are going to step up, and that's kind of where those sacks come from, especially, how Tommy has been able to get, 2.5 sacks, and they've all been up the middle on like what we used to call Alaska or a Bama stunt coming inside. So I'm going to stay with Mike only because the fact that what do you have last week? He had 2 last week and played 7 snaps.
2.5 and 7 snaps. 7 snaps. It's pretty good. Yeah,
pretty good average. I mean, that's a good day. Are we rotating enough? Probably not enough then. Not enough when guys can come in 7 plays and get 2.5 sacks. So I don't really know. I think it's going to be very even across the board. How about that? I'll put it that way. The only way they'll come is if you get a good team that can air it out and we are up on them and they have to go throw the ball. That's when they'll start happening because then they can't just nickel and dime it. But, by that time, we're probably already putting other people in. So I think the sacks will kind of be consistent throughout the board. So you'll go with the guy that will be in the middle that can get some of those. What was the next one? Tackles, Tommy. But I love the fact that it's Tommy and Steele leading the way on tackles. So that's good. 2 LBs.
I'm wondering, so Berm brought this up. He's like, well, this fact that it's been legal to hold the Buckeyes for other Big Ten teams has been going on longer than you've covered the team, Austin. I'm like, all right, that's maybe. I don't remember. Did they change that rule while you were in school, Schlegs, or like Bobby and Age? Was it legal to hold those guys off the corner and some of those great pass rushers that were already on the Buckeyes in the early 2000s?
It's kind of like the roughing the passer rule now in the NFL for quarterbacks, where you have to lay them down gently.
Put a pillow underneath.
Put a pillow underneath. You see all the memes and the different things that people are posting, which are really comical. But it's almost like, well, you know what, that was a hold, but was it that bad of a hold? Because could he have gotten a sack or not? He probably could have, but the game's so far out of reach, I just don't want to call it.
Right.
And really, it's not fair to the guys that are working their face off. Like, if it's a foul, call the foul, man. I mean, do your job back there. But it is kind of comical, that does occur.
All right.
But I will say this too, man. You look at our offensive line. On the flip side, our offensive line has been playing fantastic, and I don't sit down and break down film as to how many we get away with, but probably 0. So we probably get away with none, and we probably get so many on the defense that's ridiculous. But
I think that's probably a net win for Ohio State, right? If they don't call it on Ohio State's offensive line, the Silver Bullets are probably going to win more matchups going the other way. Like, all right, just play ball then.
Yeah, just go play ball. Hey, you know what? Our offense is going to keep moving it down the field. You're only getting a limited amount of shots anyways. It's all right.
All right. Yeah. I hadn't thought about that way, but that's a good way of looking at it. Okay. 2 different people wanted you to talk about hunting, and this show has a limit. We can't go for 3 hours, Schlegs. People have other things to do on their Sunday. They want to know, first of all, this one will probably be a shorter story. If it was true, and you did confirm it on Twitter earlier, that you did kill a squirrel and put it in Bob's locker.
Yes,
so
facts.
That's a fact. And then the best hunting trip that you've ever been on.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's side nugget, Buckeye Nation, the Buckeye Brotherhood, a guy that I coached at Ohio State, Craig Fada, great dude. His brother Kyle is actually a sheriff in the Jacksonville's sheriff office. I just went fishing with him a couple of days ago, which was super fun, just catching, reds and trout and I don't know, we caught some stingrays. Those are minus points. Catching catfish in the intercoastals and a minus point. But it's been really fun hanging out with him. That story with Bob, absolutely it happened. They used to say like I was a urban cowboy, a hillbilly. I saw Bobby kind of post a story about that too. And, we would go out and it'd be in the fall. And they're like, Schlegs, what are you doing? Because, I really didn't go to a lot of classes. I came from the Air Force Academy. And, people were putting notes online. I mean, this was back in 2004. I'm like, why? All right, first off, I went to the Air Force Academy. They wouldn't let me in Fisher College of Business. So I'm in the College of Human Ecology. And I don't even know what that is. Not cosmetology, human ecology. And they're putting all the notes online. They only take attendance when, you have to take a test. I'm like, this is easy. So I would go hunt. And when it wasn't super cold, I'd go play golf. It was great. And lift weights. It's perfect. Anyways, I digress. So they were talking trash to me. I think it was a Friday. Might have been before our senior day versus Northwestern. I don't really kind of remember, but I know it was sometime in November. And they were talking trash. And I just went outside and I was like, you know what? Bump this. I got my bow in the back. And this was back when when there was like trees and stuff by the indoor. There wasn't the facility that is there now. And I just happened to smoke one on a tree from like 30 yards. And we had just got done doing arms and stuff in there, like our Friday ritual, pump time, get swole, and then we'd go watch film. And I did it just kind of real nonchalantly. And then I went and got like a Nike box and made like a living room. I made like a whole setup out of it, and I stuck it in his locker. And so when he got out of the shower, he had somebody to greet him. Normally I eat everything that I kill. In that instance, I didn't. But, it was one of those things where I was just tired. They're like, you go out and hunt all this time and you don't ever come back with anything. I'm like, yeah, because I'm only going to kill and eat it. So I'm like, I'm not just going to go out there and just shoot something to shoot some. But then I did that squirrel. So I guess that really doesn't hold true to my values as far as it. But yeah, it was nonetheless a good story. And then probably best hunting adventure I've ever been on. There was a hog hunting trip that I went on where I probably killed my biggest boar ever, but it was also probably the I would say most life-threatening one as well, because it was, you gotta remember, so this is probably like February in Texas, so it can still get kind of cold, and we had a cold front, and we were on this big tract of land, and it was right on the Trinity River. Anyways, we're dogs are bait up, and you're just like having a beeper, and it's like tracking where the dogs are, and you're just like walking and running to go get to them. Anyways, I had, my catch dog and another dog named Bill, and we're going to where they are. And I'm like, oh, I know right where that is. They're right on the river. Okay, this is going to be quick. Hopefully it's on the other side. No big deal. So we're going, and then all of a sudden, boom, this dog that I'm with, Bill, he just strikes out on his own. And I'm just like, hold up. And it was just me and a friend and a buddy. And he strikes out, and all of a sudden just starts opening up. I'm like, that's a pig. So it's about 150 yards away in thick stuff. We run in there, and then it kind of elevated up. I don't know. I would say it kind of elevated up to where it's like you're going up an embankment that would be like a 2-story house, like up a hill, right? So you're going up a hill, and there's all this cedar thicket and thorns, and you're just going through there, and you let the catch dog go, and then all of a sudden I just saw the catch dog flip backwards, and I'm climbing up the hill, and he flies off behind me, and then my other catch dog flies off behind him, and I'm just going up there, and then they go back in, and simultaneously I'm in this thicket, and my buddy's down at the bottom, and there's a 380-pound boar in there, and I had to take care of him, So that was it, and my other dogs are in the river. So I end up killing this pig, and it's at night, so I just have a headlight on. It's dogs and a knife, and boom, I drag this down. We leave it. I know where it is. It's kind of off the road. I'm just dragging this thing back. Then we go down to the river, and sure enough, 2 of my dogs and this pig that was about 200 pounds are all the way across the other side of this river, the Trinity. So I'm like, well, there's only one way to do this, and you don't want them to drown. And so I'm like, well, I just walked up, I don't know, as far as I could, or I thought it's probably like another 200 yards. The current was moving, and I just went in, and I can't swim very well. Okay. So I dog paddled aggressively with the current across, it'd be like across the Scioto, with a current, and got over there, killed that pig, landed them all up together, and then swam back across as the dogs are kind of pulling me, and I'm kicking, and I'm holding this. The pig was floating, which was good because I gutted it before, and we floated back across the river. And then I had another 1.5 miles. So I backpacked that 200-pounder, and then the boar hog, you couldn't eat it. So took its head, put it in the backpack, had the 200-pounder. My buddy's leading the dogs out, and we had to walk another 1.5 miles back to my truck, and it's probably 40 to 38, in that range. And I'm just happy I'm moving, and then I got in there, and you always, when you're a hillbilly, you just always got to spare clothes. You have all these different things, got to the truck, and it was an adventure. Let me tell you.
Well, you performed to the level of your training, Schlegs. That's the way it goes.
That's right. That was my conditioning right there. That's what we used to do. I remember, even from the time I was 16 years old, I would go out and hunt pigs with dogs and a knife. And in the summer, I would go out there just, stupid, but no shirt. And I would just get tore up from the thorn bushes and stuff I ran through. And I would go to school like that. And people were like, what are you doing? I'm like, this is how I do it. And I trained at Metroflex Gym. I'm like, this is what we're about. How does my wife stay with me from the time I was 16 years old? God bless her.
Well, she found something that she liked and loved, and
My personality.
that's what it is. I'm going to guess. I'm going to take a wild shot in the dark that Cade Stover is probably your favorite of the current crop
Cade's my
of Buckeyes.
guy, man. Yeah, 100%. 100% he is. And I love the way that they're using him. He's a dude, man. Just when called upon, he'll respond, whatever you need him to do. He's tough, man. He's tough.
Yeah. So you probably haven't got a chance to lift or work out with him. But the other question, the last one that we're going to get to before we wrap up on the difference Sunday with Schlegs, is they wanted to know who you thought were the biggest freaks that you either lifted with yourself or when you were helping out Mick. We know that you were around Johnny Simon. When it came to my mind, like, who could Schlegel say? I know his reputation is certainly out there for one of the wildest, most aggressive dudes in the weight room. But I don't want to steal your answer from you. Who comes to mind for you for the biggest workout freak in the Woody?
I mean, I've been very fortunate to have worked out with some freaks in my life. I mean, I have trained with Ronnie Coleman before. Branch Warren, he won the Arnold multiple times. He's a freak. Johnny Jackson, big time bodybuilders. Josh Bryant, power lifter, guys that set world records and stuff. And then, it's very different. And in college, there are some guys that are just absolute freaks that could put on a lot of weight, but there's also a point in football where there's,
too much
limited returns,
right?
Yeah. Why do you don't need to deadlift 720 pounds. You don't need to squat 700, right? So Billy Price could squat the house. He was really strong. I would say probably strongest was Corey. Corey could do whatever he wanted to do. And the best was him and John Simon in the banter from, I think they had a powerlifting contest up there somewhere in Northeast Ohio. And I think they split squat and bench and deadlift. They might have tied, something like that. I think John still says that he won that because he was lighter, but though he was a heavyweight. And it's still fun to hear them razz about that. John could do a ton. Joey was extremely strong in the lower body, but we also didn't put a lot of weight on his back because he didn't need to. And he had some other issues. So it's why? But he was extremely strong. I know just because I left right when Nick was coming in. Nick Bosa was a freak. I'll tell you this. I remember one time when I first got to Ohio State, two freaks that were there. Maurice Claret, I remember one time I immediately liked Maurice because he was in there on his own squatting heavy. And I think I had just got to campus can I squat with you? It's hey, it's like gym bros. Hey, can I squat with you like this? And then, they would razz me I didn't get enough depth or whatever. I'm whatever, right? I'll deadlift you or something like that. But Maurice was an absolute freak in the weight room. But Andy Katzenmoyer is still, he's still a freak. And I remember when we were in there, he was in the league, I believe, and he had hang cleaned 405 with some straps on, it was nothing, and then just no step, just straight up jumped and touched the ceiling. I'm just who is if that's what linebackers are like at Ohio State, I should have went to South Carolina. If that's what AJ and Bobby are doing. And, and to those guys' credits too, lifting is one thing, but being able to have the total package and being able to be athletic and run. I was very blessed that I got to play in between two absolute freaks in of themselves. Cause we all, I think, benched over 4 during that time. I think Bobby had the highest bench and squats were kind of my thing and deadlift, but still, these guys, but AJ even running a 4.4 at pro day. I still mesmerized, think about that, and then somebody did also ask who cut their hair first. And it was a very easy answer. That's why I was going to answer it. I cut mine first because I had kids first.
That's right.
When your kids start playing with your hair more than their mom's hair, I was it's time to cut it. So I cut it. And then I believe it went to AJ. And then lastly was Bobby holding on to it with every fiber of his being. But he
loved those locks.
He cut it on the Buckeye Cruise for Cancer. And hey, he raised $10,000 for somebody to cut his hair on the Buckeye Cruise for Cancer. Very memorable. So
that's the way you can do it.
Man, there was like Dante Whitner was really, really strong. He was put together, man. He was a unit. Dante was. He played that nickelback. He would have been great. He would have loved this system. Like I look at this system a lot like it was in 2005, where, we could play an under front with Bobby as a stand-up 9 technique. Mm-hmm. And then we could also play 30 package where Bobby went and put his hand on the ground as an outside 5 technique, and Dante came up and was our nickel. I mean, dudes,
Yeah.
So I kind of see how this defense is playing, and I kind of look back at that with some affinity.
Well, yeah, it's fun to watch for sure, and it has been all year, and we're halfway through it somehow, already at that off date, and the Buckeyes have already won 6 games.
Let's go.
Man, time just flies, and it helps that we have Sundays with Schlegs to help make that pass. He's got the difference going, the difference makers, and we're going to be back next week, and we'll actually have another game to break down. But hey, if you've got more questions for us, I think Schlegs has got plenty of time and willingness to do and answer whatever you have on your mind out there. We appreciate everyone who's been watching, and we've got a lot more to go. Ohio State plays Iowa Saturday at noon. We'll break it down the next day, a Sunday with Schlegs, the difference, and the podcast. Hope you enjoyed this on the off date. He's Schlegs. I'm Austin. We will see you next week.